Hey everybody, so this video is being made the same night as the previous Fictosexuality Isn't Real installment, but I didn't expect there to be a second installment, but the original poster who prompted me to make the first video responded rather virulently, and so I wanted to address it quickly. I'm going to just put it up a different night though, so I'm not blowing up everybody's feed with endless videos. Anyway, so in the original Ficto, one of my, what precipitated this is that I was talking about my own issues with autism and romance and romantic connections and that sort of thing, as I was responding to a video from the Aaron's Journal channel. And one of my viewers chimed in and described themselves as being fictosexual. I didn't know what that was, so I asked. And they told me, and you can, if you want to see this in greater detail, you can watch the previous video. But what they told me was that they described themselves as fictoromantic. And what they told me was that a fictoromantic is someone who is romantically attracted to fictional characters. And then as I looked into it, there's also, of course, fictosexuality, which is obviously sexual attraction to fictional characters. And what I said in my original video essentially boiled down to the fact that everybody experiences feelings of attraction to fictional characters because that's part of having an imagination. That's just part of having an imagination. And so that's a fairly standard facet of the human experience. Now, the original poster followed up and said, but how many of those who have been attracted to / identified with fictional characters in some way are either exclusive or nearly exclusive? This is very much as predicted, and even some of your claimed points are things that I myself and others are fully aware of. Fetish isn't romance either. Fetish is sexual. Do people who want to take a random detached foot out on a romantic date? Do they want to be a good husband / wife to a pair of leather pants? Are you saying that when I genuinely, innocently experienced my very first crush as a 7-year-old, I had a fetish, really? And no, it's not Jessica Rabbit or anyone like her, well, red hair aside. Yeah, I'm just going to end this comment here, but not before reiterating that we know damn well it's fictional. The very thing we call it alludes to that, and our biggest and most painful struggle comes from exactly that. Nothing about it is in any way delusional. I don't believe that I said that you were thinking that these characters were real. I don't think I said that. If I apologize if I said anything to that effect. Anyway, but it goes on saying, we're not claiming the characters truly exist. We're not claiming they're capable of returning affection, and the genuine reality of our feelings being so one-sided is the point of actual pain, at least in my own case. Nothing personal, not actually attacking you. I honestly wouldn't have expected any better, but this is a shit take shared by every other rando who's ever briefly glanced in the direction of this, and shockingly normie for an autistic. I'll just clear all that up. All right, now I'm ending the comment. Anyway, I read that straight down, but large parts of it were done in all capital letters, I assume to convey shouting. Okay, so here's the thing, man. I think I'm correctly interpreting that what you're saying here as meaning that your pain, your great personal pain, is coming from the fact that you are exclusively attracted to fictional characters, and you know that affection can never be returned because they are fictional. I think I've said that and summarized that correctly. Okay. And you are further saying that you are exclusively feeling this way. And you are arguing that that exclusivity constitutes a sexual orientation. Okay. My opinion and my perspective on this, from what you're telling me, is that you do have a problem here. I think we can agree you have a problem. We disagree on the nature of that problem. You think the nature of the problem is everything I just described. I think the nature of the problem is that you have real and significant difficulties forming romantic and sexual connections with actual human beings. I think that's the actual problem. Because if what you are having trouble with is something that everybody experiences to some degree at some point, and you are unable to form romantic connections with actual human beings, and this situation is causing you distress, then we have to stop and look at these two situations. On your side, what you want me to do is sympathize with you because you are forever damned throughout to walk this life, to walk this earth, experiencing an exclusive sexual and romantic desire that can never be reciprocated. And what you want from me apparently is some kind of sympathy, some kind of pity party for you about how horrible this is. Or we can look at it from my perspective, which has the potential for solutions, has the potential to actually make your life better. See, the problem here, I'm willing to hurt your feelings, or not hurt your feelings intentionally, but let your feelings be hurt in the short term in order to point you towards what could actually help you. I was watching Simon Whistler's thing on I can't remember if it's Today I Found Out or one of his other channels, but it was his thing talking about people who believe that they need to have a body part removed, that they need to have they have horrible feelings that their body part needs to be removed, that their arm needs to be removed, that their leg needs to be removed, and they'll only find happiness in life if they get that limb removed. For a long time, there were doctors that were willing to clandestinely perform those removals of those unnecessary removals of limbs because it gave those people the help and the satisfaction they needed. And then it finally emerged that what these people were actually experiencing was a specific brain a specific error in brain function. I'm not qualified to explain what it is, but a problem with the functionality of their brains that could be corrected with surgery, thereby alleviating their distress. Now, of course, in the community that had sprung up around people who wanted to have body parts hacked off unnecessarily, this was tantamount to blasphemy. This was tantamount to a hate crime. How dare you say such a thing to us? This is who and what we are, blah, 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 blah. Well, that may offend them and that may hurt their feelings, but I will still hold fast to my belief that a relatively minor brain surgery that would correct the functionality of their brain is infinitely preferable to unnecessarily sawing off body parts, especially when so many of those people realized they committed irrationally to life-changing unnecessary surgeries and now had to live with the end result for the rest of their lives. A phenomenon that, as we know, is in no way, shape, or form echoed by any other currently controversial medical procedures. Anyway, so this is why, and I want to bring it down to that last thing you said about how you are expecting an autistic person to sympathize with you. Okay, here, if you have been watching my videos, then you should know that I do not view autism as a club. I don't view it as a superpower. I don't view it as my identity. I view it as a problem that I have to deal with, a problem that I have to deal with every day. And the biggest fuck you I have to offer to anyone on this earth goes to the people who will come tell me, it's not a problem that you have autism. You're just special. You have a different way of viewing the world. My different way of viewing the world is to sit on the sidelines and watch while, and this is something that Aaron expressed in his videos too, sit on the sidelines and watch while everyone around me goes out and forms romantic relationships and starts families and raises children and has all of those things of their own and so many other things in life that are difficult for me because of this problem that I have. It's a day in, day out conscious struggle that I have to deal with every day. And I have nothing but disdain and honestly hatred for people who try to tell me that it's this special, quirky little condition that makes me a magic person. Oh my God. Anyway, you seem to be aghast that or offended that I'm not one such person. No, I don't believe in affirmative care. And that's the problem. What you're wanting is essentially the affirmative care model. And you're wanting, what you're wanting is validation. And the problem with that is the nanosecond you don't encounter validation, you're completely thrown off. You're completely you're instantly angry and have difficulty coping with it. And it's because as you stated, you know full well that this is an unsustainable proposition. And because you know it's an unsustainable proposition, the nanosecond, deep down, no matter what you actually say, you react badly whenever anyone tells you the truth. Now, again, I'm not a professional psychotherapist or psychoanalyst or anything like that, but this is not, it's not terribly difficult to see what's going on here. And I'll tell you something, when they train actual therapists and actual psychoanalysts and things like that, they train them not to get emotionally invested in their patient's responses. Because very often when they point the patient in the right direction of what they actually need, the patient will react very badly. The patient will take offense and umbrage at it. How dare you suggest something like that? And explode at them. If they're wrong, the patient will just say, no, I don't think that's it. And so because of that, they have to be ready for patients to get angry and blow up at them when they've touched that nerve. And I'm not a professional therapist or anything, but I feel like that's what's happening here. You know that this is fun. I think on some level that what I just presented there is the right course of action. That rather than viewing this as your sexual identity that we all need to respect and affirm, you need to get help. And you need to get help socializing with other people and forming relationships and attachments with other people. If you're not able to do that, that is unfortunate, and that is what I will sympathize with you over. But I will not ever extend you any sympathy whatsoever because Jim and the holograms don't reciprocate your feelings. And this is, again, like I said, going back to that autism, that comment about how it's shockingly normy for an autistic. Again, autism is not a weird people club for me. You have any idea how much I would love to be normal? I mean, my God, I want you to stop and think for a minute about how disrespectful it really is for me and then Aaron, who I was responding to be making videos about our very real difficulties forming relationships with actual women and forming long-term relationships with actual women, how it makes it difficult for us to have long-term relationships, have families of our own, move forward in our lives. We feel stuck. We're talking about those things, those very real problems, and you come in with, oh yeah, by the way, I'm romantically attracted to fictional characters. Those are not the same, those are not in the same category of problem. Heterosexual man and person who is attracted to comic book characters to the exclusion of real people is not a comparable issue. Your issue is your inability to form attachments with real people. Your whatever social problems and psychological hangups and emotional issues are preventing you from doing that. That's your actual problem. There's no such thing as a sexual orientation being a sexual orientation purely involving the fictional. And the reason for that is that a sexual orientation implies, by its very nature, implies receptivity and reciprocity. Heterosexual men and women find reciprocity in men and women. Homosexual men and women find reciprocity in homosexual men and women. There is a sexual orientation implies the capacity for sexuality, for sexual engagement. That is not possible with you being sexually attracted to whatever it is you're attracted to, fictionally. So I am not going to affirm anything about that. I will tell you what your real problem is, because that will point you in the right direction. I did years ago, I'll wrap this up this way. Years ago, I did a video responding to an article I read by a wheelchair-bound woman who was talking about how she doesn't like the lack of representation of handicapped people on shows like Star Trek, because she never noticed Geordie LaForge, apparently. But what she doesn't like is that I should back up. What she doesn't like is because when there are characters like Geordie LaForge, they've always been fixed in some way. So she never gets to see people in wheelchairs on Star Trek. She never gets to see, people with, amputees on Star Trek, all of this stuff, because all of those problems have been fixed. And she doesn't like the fact that this thing that's so central to her identity is viewed as a problem that needs to be fixed. And it's unfortunate she feels that way. I said in the video essay I made, which was called, I believe it's called "Hyperspace is Not Handy Capable." I said it's unfortunate that she feels that way, because those are problems to be solved. And she might think the last thing I said was, she might think I'm an asshole for feeling that way, but I would still rather she be able to walk across the room and tell me that. And so that is where it stands. No, I'm not shockingly normie. What do you think is the point I've been trying to get across in all of this? I'll tell you, okay, I'm going to put in one last thing. I need to wrap this up. I'm going to put in one last thing. A while back, there's a channel I used to really like called Cinema Therapy, where a licensed professional therapist named Jonathan Decker and his buddy, who is a filmmaker named Alan Seawright, watch movies together, and they discuss and talk about scenes from the various movies from a psychoanalytical standpoint, from a therapy standpoint, that kind of thing. I used to really love their content until they did a video, and you can look it up on my channel, the commentary I did, but they did a video, two videos talking about dissociative identity disorder, one of them using the movie Split, and the other one using it's one of those superhero things, Moon something or other. Anyway, in both cases, they were talking about the portrayals of dissociative identity disorder. And they said something that was so, in those videos, that was so, and watch both videos, they do say this. They don't allude to it. They very directly say this, especially in the second one. They actually said that if you are encountering a person with dissociative identity disorder, you ought to respect the fact that there really are multiple people inside that person's head, that you're talking to a system, and that if the system is happy being a system, then they don't need treatment. You should affirm that there's multiple people living in their inside their body and inside their head, and support them in that. You shouldn't give them treatment. You should support them in that. That is such a brazen dereliction of mental health care that I really do think Jonathan Decker should be stripped of his license. Like, that is insane to me. that is absurd, beyond absurd to me. That would be like if somebody, if a doctor saw somebody who was bleeding profusely and the person said, "No, I really believe that this is actually red Gatorade. I identify this as red Gatorade." And the doctor said, "Oh, okay, I respect you. I respect and affirm your identity," as the person bleeds out. That's the level that, because dissociative identity disorder comes about as a coping mechanism for severe trauma. The longer that dissociative identity disorder persists in a person, the longer they are failing to address the real trauma and the real pain that they are experiencing. And the longer it persists, the worse it gets. And not only are you allowing that person to continue suffering by affirming their identity, not only are you allowing them to continue suffering, but you are putting them on a path that many untreated mentally ill people have gone down. A path of joblessness, a path of homelessness, a path of loss of family and relationship connections, a path towards, every homeless person that mentally ill homeless person that you see out there screaming on the streets is somebody that did not get the help that they needed. And every time you affirm somebody, who you use the affirmative care model, that's what you're doing to people. And the affirmative care model is when you have the gall to say that a person who with dissociative identity disorder really does have multiple people in their head, at which point you have to say, well, why did you call it a disorder? But anyway, saying that they ought to be treated as though they really do have all these people in their heads. It's when you say that someone who clearly has some sort of social anxiety, that's crippling social anxiety and emotional problems that's making it impossible for them to connect with the outside world to such a degree that they think they're in love with fictional characters exclusively. That's what you're doing when you affirm that nonsense. That's what you're doing. So no, you want to get mad at me? That's fine. Stay mad at me. But whatever you do, think about what I'm saying here. Think about the fact that help is available for you, but it cannot and will not take the form that you want it to take. If you were a heroin junkie, I would want you to get clean. If you were a heroin junkie, I would want you to get clean, and you would think that me wanting you to kick the junk was the meanest, most awful thing that you'd ever heard. But once you kicked that junk, you would realize that I was being the compassionate one in the situation. And that's what you need to realize here. You think I'm being a jerk? Fine. But if you ever do get help for your actual problems, one day you will come back and thank me.